Namaskar and welcome to Daily Global Insights, episode number 250. A shout out to our viewers to like this program so it can reach its maximum potential. Today is Tuesday, and here are the main points. Global markets rocked by Evergrande scandal, and how will China respond? China not welcome to CPTPP, say Australia and Japan, while Singapore and Malaysia are accommodative. How will Democrats and Republicans reconcile suspending the debt limit and avoiding a shutdown? And fallout from AUKUS continues in Europe. UNGA sessions commence. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to the special 250th episode, sir.
Good morning and happy to have been part of this 250th day of Daily Global Insights mission. So very excited. And yes, we can kick off the session probably with whichever topic that you feel is appropriate, Sriji.
Yes. So to start with the Evergrande default crisis in China and the China's approach to this resolution, because we don't know how they are going to react. But yesterday the US markets lost 1.7% and the Dow fell more than 600 points. There is also a global energy shortage looming as investments in fossil fuel slides back because of climate change, I guess. So looking at Evergrande, what are your thoughts? You are a man who understands numbers. Please make it easy for people to understand. If a company fails in China, why is US getting the jitters?
They have raised close to $350 billion. It is large. It is the largest publicly held company holding that level of debt. The debt is typically cascade. A percentage of the debt typically cascades through the global markets. It's very similar to the mortgage crisis in the United States. If you have a mortgage crisis in the United States and if there is a default, what is going to happen? A whole bunch of international investors are going to be impacted. So in simple terms, it has all the signs that it resembles a mortgage crisis here. The question, therefore, is they have announced that they are going to default. Okay, Evergrande has made it very clear that they don't have the capacity, and so they're going to default on the loans or default on the debt that they have raised in the market. So there are two methods available for China. The usual method, they bail them out, protect the investors, or they basically say protect the company and tell goodbye to the investors, and in which case the investors take the haircut and book the losses. So these are the two options that we are going to see. And banks have made it very clear if they're going to buy out the debt, they have to shell out the cash, and the banks will not lend against the debt. So in other words, I say, Sree Chittiala, my company wants to go and buy out that debt because I believe that I can service it. And then I say, okay, I have $10 and I need the balance $90. I go to the bank, and very similar to the consumer. So the banks have said in case somebody wants to buy out the debt, they're not prepared to, lend against it. So effectively, China is left with two choices. Either allow it to bankrupt by protecting some core assets, or if they believe that it is a global contagion, they may choose to take full ownership. I very much doubt, given the Chinese mindset, whether they would take full ownership. So there is some amount of, losses that is going to cascade through the system.
And we will wait and see how this fallout happens. And the UN General Assembly is going to likely be dominated by Afghanistan and the impact of the pandemic. And Biden will be focusing his efforts on greater collaboration amongst countries on climate. Ministers from Britain, China, France, Germany, and Russia will not meet with Iran at the General Assembly. Sridharji, looks like only US wants to make this deal with Iran, or is that just my misperception?
US is forcing. So US is trying to push the agenda. So I think we have mentioned this several times in Daily Global Insights. It's almost like there is a checklist that Mr. Biden and Mr. Obama are having. What are the unfinished businesses of my first and second term? And what are those things that were reset? All those things, one after the other, they are taking. And sitting right amongst the top 5, 6, 7, 8 priorities is this UN US initiated nuclear deal that was done in 2015 that only worked for Mr. Obama. I don't think it worked for the world. So I think that is the reason why they're pushing. So what they have done is there is a IAEA meeting and US is also attending in Vienna. So the foreign ministers are saying, which is China, Russia, France, Germany, and UK are saying there's no point in meeting. It just achieves no purpose because somebody else is already dealing with it. As far as Russia and China is concerned, they couldn't care two hooves. They probably buy oil. You want to go nuclear? Be nuclear. So it is the EU which wants a deal, but which also wants a deal that makes sure that the nuclear ambitions of Iran are contained. You and I know that that's not going to happen.
And the next looming threat for the Democrats and the government is the shutdown that could happen because of debt ceiling with no consensus emerging. Janet Yellen wants House representatives that a major economic contagion could happen should the ceiling be not suspended. This is a charade, Sridharji. I've been seeing this for 20-25 years. Same thing happens, whether it is the Republican government or the Democratic government. There'll be all this grandstanding and finally they'll go and lift the debt ceiling. Is it going to be the same thing again, sir? What are your thoughts?
I think there will be a compromise and the debt ceiling will be lifted. The compromise is how the compromise is. There's a slightly complicated situation in this scenario here. You have the progressives pushing. So there's all kinds of what you call, tchotchkes attached to this deal. All the amnesty, 8 million people to be kind of normalized, DACA to be normalized, the new illegals to be normalized, climate accord to be normalized, all that to be part of this mega zillion bill. Along with that, debt ceiling should also now be added. Now, what they found, this guy, Republican said, make up your mind what you want. You want debt ceiling? No problem. But don't add all these things. Okay, you want infrastructure? We got the infrastructure deal done. So I think Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are trying to kind of scratch their heads and basically trying to figure out what is a small bill that they can come up with which they can get a bipartisan support. And the situation in the present circumstances here is, in the prior instances, it was only the budget. They needed the budget deficit so that they can pay. Here, we have to lift by $6.5 trillion to take it to $28.5 trillion to reset. Plus, there's new stuff that is coming in. What happens if you don't do? Not only the external debt holders who will not be paid, complete even Social Security to every government payment is going to be shut down, because right now we are in what we call furlough. If I can borrow that word, we are only prioritizing the payments and sending. If these people don't suspend this debt limit, then there is a problem that is looming. So whether the Democrats will kneel and agree to the Republican conditions in terms of diluting what is needed rather than all these tchotchkes being added will be the deciding factor.
Activists and progressives call for reversal of parliamentarian ruling on amnesty. Durbin says unlikely. DHS calls for army support to oust the illegal Haitians at the border. We talked about this yesterday, about the selective treatment. Central Americans are okay, Haitians are not. And Biden aims to welcome 125,000 refugees next year. Sir, is this a typo? Is it next year or next month?
Next year. So they have.
It was sarcastic, sir.
Yeah, I know you're sarcastic, but it is. Oh, we have already got 2 million this year. Plus, we have 95,000 from Afghanistan. We're way past refugee limits. There's no limits this year. It is limitless as people are coming in. This 125,000 is what we call as an orchestrated program. I have a feeling my numbers may be a little bit, incorrect here. I think Trump had reduced it to either 15,000 or 45,000. So Mr. Biden says, we embrace the word. We need to be such. We need voters. We need more Democratic voters. And where can I find them? We can find them from all these different destinations, and a quick path, a speedy path to citizenship, or change the voting law so they all can vote. So I think that we are going, it's called a double whammy. One, we are adding debt and reducing the income. Second, we are adding more people to service through all these freebies and dole outs that we are giving. So interesting next two years ahead for us. 2020, 2022, 23, 24. 2022 and 20, more specifically 2023, will be very interesting years, as 2022 elections will figure out what exactly is going to happen and how all these things are going to be ironed out from an economics and mathematics point of view.
And Trudeau Liberals win Canada elections but miss the majority, and the result could be along the same lines as the last elections. Last time it was the Jagmeet Singh faction that was the deciding group, and I think he was promised the deputy prime ministership, but I think that fell through the cracks. Siddhanji, what do you think is going to happen this time?
The new day is a new morning. Let's see what unfolds. Canadian elections is a little unpredictable in terms of the final composition. The sad truth is the Conservatives finished with the same number of votes as they did. So I think it's pretty much Trudeau running riot. And who knows, the faction this time may say, there's no go, you need to give us the deputy prime ministership. And they may get it.
The fallout continues from the EU-UK-US deal, with France now threatening to block the EU-Australia trade negotiations, Biden to speak with French President Macron to iron out the issue. Australia seeks to calm ASEAN nerves over UK-US. Sir, why don't they call it USUCA? US-UKA. It's easier it rolls off of the tongue easier, sir. AUKUS sounds like couscous or something like that. It's like not exactly the word that I would like to be using.
There's a lot of people listening from Washington, D.C. I'm sure they may take a heed of this. And if not, we will certainly send a note to the White House to rename, or to the Secretary of State office to rename this.
Yes.
So it makes it easier. Yeah. So to get back to, sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead. I was going to, go ahead, sir.
No, I think the most important point here is that the ASEAN is concerned because it is a significant nuclear deal either way between France and either France or Australia or US UK. But US UK is even more focused because some of the nuclear capabilities that US and UK bring to bear over and above the submarine potentially causes some hiccups in the specific region. Indonesia always had feared that at some day Australia may, make a conquest of Indonesia. So you have the Australia-Indonesia tension. So they said, hey, you said you signed a non-proliferation treaty, and you are now, what are you going to do with all these nuclear capabilities? Then you have the ASEAN, which is Australia is also closely aligned. They're saying we have preserved what they call as the centrality or the neutrality of this nuclear architecture. What is this going to do? So I think that what does this mean to us by virtue of these new capabilities? So my response to ASEAN is, you got to get your act together, right? You make up your mind whether you believe South China Sea and Malacca Strait and the Indian Ocean is a threat to your existence in terms of trade, or you believe that everything is hunky-dory. So if that is the case, then don't worry, because you don't need to have US footprint, you don't need to have Quad, you don't need to have anything. So the only sane country that has made a positive endorsement of this is Philippines. Philippines has stated, we welcome this decision because we need something to combat China.
Yes, indeed. And many of you were incredulous when we had a specialist saying that China has some plans to do with their nuclear submarine. And now you are seeing a reaction. Don't tell us that everybody read our news broadcast and then decided that, oh, this represents a threat and therefore we have to do something about it. But I'm just telling that we tend to be at the tip of the spear. We tend to be the tip of the spear as far as news is concerned, and we often get it right much, much ahead of everybody else. That's about our bragging rights for today. I'm going to continue on. Belarus is weaponizing the illegal migrants at the border, threatening Europe, says EU. EU and UK fully vaccinated visitors are allowed to travel from November to US. So now US is opening the door slowly but steadily to EU and UK's fully vaccinated visitors. Except there's another, I don't know, we'll see if there is an item about UK forbidding many other countries from coming in, saying that we don't accept this vaccination, which is a vaccination that they themselves produce. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think this one is it's a positive news because people want to get out and move forward and deal with the situation as it comes now. They've done their quarantine quota of quarantine. So I think it's a good move that UK and EU visitors who are fully vaccinated are being allowed in. Now, here's the interesting dilemma. I think this is one of the reasons. So Republican states have pushed. If you believe fully vaccinated is the norm, why haven't you opened the borders? What are you afraid of? So you are afraid of something. So therefore, why should we vaccinate? Why should we follow this mandate? So I think is quickly doubling down and basically saying, we will now begin to open. And remember, one more country which has allowed, Dubai has been a long time immemorial. Singapore has now opened what they call as fully vaccinated lanes in a slow and steady manner. So I think it is high time that US demonstrated that opening up of these fully vaccinated lanes. I have a feel EU should do the same. Because if you have to follow the quarantine protocols, if you're fully vaccinated, you actually have to be worried whether you could be a recipient rather than one who is a transmitter.
And China's CPTPP membership runs into rough waters with Malaysia and another country, I think Singapore, supportive, while Australia and Japan are opposing. Asia continues to battle COVID cases, and in Australia, further trouble spots emerge in construction site. Sridharji, this CPTPP, we touched upon it, I think yesterday. Can you expand it a little bit, sir? The membership has to be approved by every member, isn't it?
Yes, every member, the 15 members will have to approve the CPTPP. The ASEAN 10 members plus 5 members. Remember, this was part of the extended RCEP deal. So all members have to be. And if any of the major members veto, because ASEAN generally votes as a bloc, then effectively it's null and void. A country cannot come in. Right now, there is a universal consent to bring UK in. So UK has been bragging, which is to say we'll be coming first even before, because we have been in the waiting list for a long time. So it's very interesting. China is in RCEP. India didn't participate, but China is not in CPTPP and it wants to join.
India could cross UK as the 5th largest market by market cap by the 2024, according to Goldman Sachs. Modi and Biden meet is awaited with renewed hope for enhancing bilateral ties per experts. India to commence COVID-19 exports and Indian neighborhood to get first doses. Sridharji, about the Biden Modi meeting, looks like it's going to take place on the sidelines of the UNGA. So it's not like a formal meeting, isn't it?
It looks like it's not a formal meeting. It is meeting that is taking place on the sidelines. There is a Quad meeting which is happening in person. So there is a full agenda for Quad. So there is a UNGA meeting. Then there's a Modi-Biden meeting on the sidelines of UNGA. Then there is a Quad meeting where all these members would be present in person. So you have these 3 meetings. I am sure between these meetings, they will figure something out in terms of what they need to do. There's a lot of bilateral enthusiasm between Biden Modi meet, I don't share the same enthusiasm as many of the people do, and because one of the things that people have to come to grips with is generally the industry is insulated from the government. In other words, if the investments are flowing into India, if there is nothing which is government to government issues, the investment will continue to flow through. If there are no trade barriers, the trade will continue, except United States and India does have some issues around certain selective areas. For example, agriculture is one area. Certain types of industrial investments is another area. But they have been enhancing their defense. The defense is one area which has moved on. So what you're going to find is that there's not much quantitative changes that you can expect. They couldn't do the bilateral agreement even when Trump was present, because Trump was supposed to be much more pro-India relative to Biden. So what will come out is a little figurative statements, and they will say, hey, you guys are doing a great job. Please look after Pfizer. I didn't say that. He may say that. And now, by the way, J&J has just announced that they have a very high level of efficacy. So when you export, please keep these people in mind. Something along those lines, is what may come out on the COVID situation. That's one. It's going to be interesting to see what they talk about Iran and what they say about, most critically, Afghanistan.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
And so we will wait to see how things play out. Viewers, thank you so much for your support. 250 episodes is not easy. Sridharji and I are constantly striving to improve the quality. You will notice that now our programs are a little shorter because we wanted to focus and try to give you that extra incentive to watch these programs. Do keep supporting us. Subscribe to our channel. Do join our membership. And we'll be back again tomorrow bright and early. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.